That count. This is the Women's Empowerment Program, and our topic for tonight is, what are the 5 essential psycho-spiritual must-haves every woman needs? So, Inspire, Innovate, Ignite Conversations That Count is all about getting inspired by expert panelists who share innovative self-empowerment tips that will enrich your life. Each intimate group of panelists has been hand-chosen for specific topics to ignite deep conversations among guests who join us live. Showing up live is the very best way to not only learn from experts, but to engage in the discussions and get your own questions answered. So tonight's topic, as I said a few minutes ago, is what are the 5 essential psycho-spiritual must-haves every woman needs? So spirituality used to be separate from real life, and it used to be exotic. Psychology used to be all about unpacking life experiences to make sense of who we are and why we do what we do. Somehow, in these uncertain times, the two have actually merged. So our conversation tonight will explore the 5 psycho-spiritual crossovers needed to make sense of life in uncertain times. Before I go on, I just want to mention that what I've noticed recently and what I'm hearing from so many spiritual people, professionals, is that as we are continuing to move through the pandemic, that joy and hope and playfulness is beginning to really emerge and become a strong part of our day-to-day life. It's as if people are looking for the playfulness and the joy and the reasons that make life so exciting. So I'm going to just introduce our panelists tonight. We have Grace Hart. Grace, give us a little wave, let people see where you are and who you are. Grace is the host of Up Your Vibe Tribe. And as a law of attraction life coach, Grace helps people break through vibrational barriers that sabotage and frustrate their manifesting results, creating access to all that lights up their souls. That is such a beautiful life's work, Grace. I'm so glad you're here on this conversation. We have Heidi Henyon. Heidi, have I pronounced your last name correctly? And there you are, pretty in pink. Heidi started her journey at age 17, more than 40 years ago, when she came across her first yoga master from India, who piqued her natural curiosity about body and mind. From this point, Heidi has been fascinated with how the world we live in and create for ourselves affects us and our well-being. She received her first certifications in applied kinesiology when she was only 21 years old and has continued to study energy medicine, movement, and the art of ritual and ceremony. Even while in corporate America, teaching internationally in the computer industry, she continued to study internationally and work with clients privately. That's a pretty tall order. Well done, Heidi. Finally, in 2001, after 9/11, she left her corporate position of 25 years, realizing her heart was really in helping people to heal and feel whole. Heidi, I think you're going to have a lot to offer this conversation tonight. I'm so glad you're here with us. And Jade MacArthur. Where are you, Jade? Give us a wave. Fantastic. Jade is a trained life coach, intuitive reader, and content creator at Astro Girl, a spiritual platform that educates everyday people on mindset and mysticism hacks for wellness and empowerment. After being diagnosed with severe anxiety and panic disorder in 2017, Jade experienced her first spiritual awakening. And that led her on the path to exploring alternative options for guidance and healing in the areas of spirituality and personal development. Astro Girl was then born with the belief that esoteric knowledge is every human's birthright. I could not agree more, Jade. Thank you for bringing that to us tonight. You can find Jade across all social media platforms, and your information will be shared at the end of our panel tonight. And finally, we have the beautiful Joanne Irwin. Joanne, give us a smile and a wave if you wouldn't mind. Let people see where you are. Joanne works with ambitious women living in overwhelm or anxiety who have big dreams and want to achieve success through work-life balance, though they have been burned out and continually struggle to achieve their ultimate outcomes. She is the creator of Empower You and Finding You Time. And these are programs that she teaches women of how to harness their manifestation power to master their life and to live from a balanced, abundant, peaceful place, achieving all their desires, goals, and dreams with ease. Wow, we have an exceptionally powerful panel tonight. And I know that every single one of you is going to bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and great tips to our viewers. So psycho-spiritual tools, what are we really talking about? That's kind of like psychobabble to a lot of people, right? Logical minds bend themselves around the unexplainable mysteries, and that gives color and depth to our rational life. So not only do we need the psychological rationality in our lives, but we also need the color and the depth that spirituality gives us so that we do feel completely whole in our worlds. I'm going to just give an introduction so that we all know where we're coming from tonight. So what is psycho-spiritual integration? That sounds like a lot of, again, more psychobabble. Very simply, it's a process of using both the psychological and the spiritual to make sense of our world. Lots of people search for transcendence. It's a big thing with people today to find that higher place, the higher vibration that takes us to our best possible life. But what most people don't recognize is that you can't transcend if you aren't fully developed or healed from your life trauma. So a lot of what we're going to be talking tonight is the simplest ways that people can heal from life trauma. And what's psycho-spiritual stress? So simple. It's a crisis of values, a crisis of meaning, and a crisis of purpose. We kind of lose connection to those things. For some, it's joyless, unproductive work or a disconnect from your core values. So you can see how these are all very simple day-to-day concepts. And our experts are going to be talking to these concepts throughout our conversation. So this is what you've been waiting for, the 5 must-have tools, okay? The first one, sacred inner conversations. So simple, sacred inner conversations with our built-in spiritual and soulful companions. Those companions that have been with us forever, that help to guide us even when we may not realize that they're there. So number 1 is sacred inner conversations. We must have that in order to be psychologically and spiritually balanced. The second is surrender to love. Surrender to love. There are all kinds of love. Love of life, love of self, love of others, love of our work, love of our pets. It goes on and on. But for each person, that surrender to love is going to be different. The gift of number 3 is the gift of being yourself in curiosity for whatever is going on in your life. Get excited, get curious about what's going on in your life. And that will help you to define that psycho-spiritual bridge. Number 4, giving permission to align our hearts with. Now that with is a ... because for each person, what you want to align your heart with is going to be different. There is no right and there is no wrong. And then the last one is conscious care of your spirit and soul. Take time out to talk to your spirit, which is your experiential self, and your soul, which is your God connection, your universal connection. Talk to them. Find out what they have to say. Most of us never talk to our spirit or to our souls. So what I think I'd like to do is start off with each one of our experts and ask you what you think, what your 5 essentials might be, and just give us the headings, the topics, so we can see how closely my 5 are aligned with your 5. And it's perfectly fine if they don't align, if they're not the same. And that gives our listeners a much larger playground to explore. I'm going to start with eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think I'm going to start with Joanne. So Joanne, take yourself off mute if you could.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Wow, what an amazing conversation to be a part of. It's been like 40 years in the making for me, and most of us have had some sort of awakening or experience that leads us down this path. And for me, I think the very first thing was actually having a connection to something, having a connection to a community of like-minded souls that can support you on your journey. And when I was felt alone and unsupported, and I was left with 4 children on my own, so my world was just turned upside down. So I had to search for something. And for me, it's just been a joy that I had a support structure in place where I was able to connect to. So connection to your community, or your, whatever you like to call it, your tribe or like-minded people to go on that journey with is I feel an essential first step, because through that you then can go to find that connection to yourself. Can't find that connection to spirit, which is what you're talking about there. Being able to experience that, like, and be supported, and not feel like you're speaking a foreign language, because a lot of us are quite fearful of even going there. But if you've got that structure in place that can support you, and you feel comfortable about being able to share your experiences, is vital in your journey. And having a practice in place is a really important next step. Having that must do for you practice. And we'll probably get onto that a bit later in the chat, but I teach a certain practice that's simple. I mean, doing the things aren't always easy, but again, with the support of the people around you that understand you, you can have a devotion or a dedication to some sort of practice for yourself every single day. And I feel like trust is really coming through as well. Having that trust in your own self and your ability, and the people that support you is a must-have. The ability to, because that will help you trust yourself, and having those learning those tools along the way to build that trust. I don't know if that was 5, but they were the essential ones that I have been that were really important for me, and then just building on that as you go.
So community, validation, trust, structure.
Connection. Connection. Really important to something. It doesn't really matter. You could be connected to the earth, to the plants, to the animals.
Exactly. That's the spiritual connection. The psychological connection is that community where you connect with real people in real time. So
absolutely.
We have touched on the psycho-spiritual tools that you have brought into your life that gave you structure and helped you in a time of crisis.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
Personal and so appreciated. Thank you so much, Joanne. Grace, what would you like to add to this?
Sorry, it took me a while to unmute properly. Yes, it's all very interesting. It's great stuff to talk about. So for me, my list is first and foremost having faith in a higher power. For me, spirit, universe, knowing that has my back, and that it allows me to be able to relax in and to trust that I'm supported. That's really super important for me. And then knowing and living out of my true story. So believing that I'm, first and foremost spirit, having a human experience and living out of that. resourcedness, being resourced for my humanness side of me. Having that self-awareness and understanding my old story and the programming so that I can support that human part of me. What else? There's having a strong self-concept of myself that I love and support. If I'm not loving and supporting it, it's going to crumble. So having both sides of that. And then, yeah, what everybody else is saying about the community, having somewhere where I can uplift and support my vibration, have that supported, whether I'm doing that for myself using strategies or being in amongst other like-minded people and having talks like this and being, having that support. Yeah, really important.
Absolutely beautiful. And you can see that between Joanne and Grace, Joanne comes at it from first principles, from the psychological structured area, and then she moves into the spiritual, where Grace comes at it from spiritual first, and then she supports the spiritual with the reality of the psychological, what the human needs in real time. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing how we aren't separate from, regardless of how spiritual we have become in our lives, we aren't separate from that psychological aspect of being human, a human having a spiritual experience and a spirit having a human experience. I love it. This is getting so good. Okay. Yeah. Heidi, if you wouldn't mind going next, that would be me. Jade, we're waiting for you. You're going to close this part of it, but let's hear from Heidi first.
Sure. Thanks so much. And I have to say how honored I am to be with such amazing women, and this conversation is absolutely lovely. And I love the 5 principles that that you talked about. And, then Joanne bringing in the community, and Grace brought in a part that I find so important is you have to have such a good relationship with yourself. You have to be your own best friend, and that's one of the places that I certainly struggled with when I was little, because I had a very severely abusive childhood, which really separated me from my body. And when I started studying with the yoga master at 16, that kind of brought in both the principle of, yes, I'm a body, and yes, there's spirit. So I've always wanted to examine that. The biggest thing for me, though, more than anything, is that connection to the heart, the connection to the earth, and the connection to myself. Because once I truly, almost treat my some of those inner beings inside of me with respect and joy, and treat myself with respect and joy, then I can have a really strong connection with spirit, a very loving connection with spirit, as well as bringing very loving relationships into my life. And, community has really been just one of the most critical things that helped me through all my healing. A safe place where I can just be me. When I show up and I'm smiling, going, oh, yes, I'm fine today. And somebody goes, no, what's really going on? Or at the same time, when I show up authentically full of joy because something wonderful has happened, they celebrate me and support me. And I think that's what helps so much, that practice of being centered in my own heart, centered in the earth, and understanding me, and having that connection with others, because that's, at least for me, that's how I learn so much.
So really, for you, in order for you to remain grounded, you do need a tribe of committed people who get you, who talk the same language that you talk, that understand the spirituality and the logical psychology of being you in your community.
Yeah, for me, and it is very much a balance of both the spirit and the psychology, and how do we find that wonderful conversation inside, like you were saying, those sacred inner conversations.
That's going to be our next question, and I'm going to ask you to lead that one off. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. We have to hear from Jade first, but yes, please. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we move to Jade? Not yet? Okay. Okay. Jade, it's your turn.
Well, I think for me, especially coming from the mental health standpoint as a young person in this world and the craziness that we're going through, I think it's finding your own practice, tangible spiritual practice that works for you. And I think that practice will change as you change and the experiences that you go through mold you. So it's working with, for me, it's finding a practice, whether it be tarot or astrology, that helps you learn more about yourself to uncover your true self and work through that way. But I think it's important to get down to the root causes of what makes you you. So going to a therapist or seeing a life coach and then building upon that, because I know I would not be the person that I am today, which I feel is more of my real self, my authentic self, if I didn't unpack what I had learned in my environment as a child, because of those, all of those projections that maybe you didn't come from a spiritual background or a spiritual family. So I think it's really essential to first get to the core root of, what's impacting you, not so much negatively, but in a way that's molding you and pulling you off your path out of alignment, I think.
Well, it's interesting that we have a representation of women right across the board from many different ages. Jade, you're the youngest of us, but you've also had quite a very rich and complicated journey to get to where you are in such a short period of time, relatively, and to bring yourself to a successful place that way. So your perspective is so valuable here. And I love that you come at it from the scientific and the spiritual side as well. So I'm going to be curious about your other conversations with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that perspective. It's very, very valuable for all of us to hear that, especially from somebody as young as you are. I don't know, you could be, go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, I just think it's really important as a young person that I am doing what I'm doing, because I don't think that there is an age on this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's such a stigma in this community that you have to be a certain age or a certain person with a certain background and qualifications. But I don't believe that's true. So that's my mission, and that's where I'm coming from.
I don't either. You're at one end of the spectrum. I'm at the other end of the spectrum. We both have professional qualifications to do the work, and we both have life experience that gives us a depth that other people may not have. So each of us brings our own special flavor and life experience that will attract exactly the right kind of person who needs what it is that you and you and you and you deliver. So brilliant. Heidi, let's come back to that first question. Those sacred inner conversations with our spiritual and soulful companions, or whoever it is that you have those sacred inner conversations with. Can you give us a bird's eye view for you, what a sacred inner conversation actually looks like?
Sure. First, I'd like to say, Jade, I'm so glad that you are here and speaking. I love the young women that are coming forward and talking. And I agree with you fully. You have to get to whatever those root causes and those things that happened. And that's when we truly heal, because then they don't, whatever it is we had to learn from our experiences, that's what allows us to learn. So thank you for bringing that up. And that falls straight into the sacred conversations. Inside, especially for me, when a critic or a judge or one of those sort of parts of my being comes up, I don't get mad at it. I don't, say, oh, stop. It's, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to show me? They're developed as coping mechanisms. This goes into the psychological side, how those parts of us are developed as the coping mechanism in this world that we're living in right now to help us get through it. as we grow out of the need for the coping mechanism, making it bad or wrong and have to get rid of it, for me, puts a rift between my soul and myself. Whereas if I come at it sort of from that soulful side of, oh, here you are. What do you want me to hear? What do you want me to know? How can I literally have those kinds of conversations. And that has helped me heal and be strong. And there's a whole wonderful practice around that. The complement to that is when I'm having conversations with spirit, which is a very different, for me, that's a really going deeply in my heart, deeply inside, with gratitude and love, as you're bringing before, getting in that place of love and saying, what do you want me to know? How do you want me to move forward? You know, what happens? And then, you know, there are times, like even when I'm on my land at the retreat center, where I can feel the land and the elementals of the land coming, and I want to say sort of wrapping themselves around me and helping me to understand, what do I need to give this land in a sacred way? So for me, those sacred conversations really look like going inside, first centering in my heart, sending love to me, sending love to spirit, out to the universe, and then what do I need to learn and know in this moment?
One of the questions that I always ask is, what is it that I don't already know about this? So tell me, and I'm going to spirit, I'm going to soul, and saying, what is it I don't already know? The next, once they've given me that piece, why is it important for me to know this now? What's going to change about how I do things or how I approach people now that I know this, right? And am I supposed to use this for my own growth, or am I supposed to share this with the world? So that's a continuation of your conversation as well, which, and from the sounds of it, you're doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I'm very clear that a big part of my being here is certainly for my own growth and evolution, but it's also to create safe space and provide a good environment for other people. And I do that by, like you say, listening to those things, and then how do I bring this out to a world in a way that's safe and conscious, that allows others who, because I do work with a lot of trauma, is it allows them to be able to know that they're safe to go into those scary places in their mind and in their being, those parts that they're afraid of that seem to be yelling at them. And when that's happening inside, it's really hard, or it can be. I don't want to put that into anybody's place, but I know in my own personal experience, when the conversations in my head are not supportive, so to speak, conversations, it can be really hard for me to hear spirit and hear the communication. And it's that learning to not fight inside and go, oh, because, and I heard something about a year ago, a wonderful book called No Bad Parts. And one of the things that he points out in there is we're taught in modern day psychology, and I'm learning on this because I have an associate's degree in dance. So I don't have the degrees, and I think there's an advantage to that. And, you know, because if you look at the way most people are taught, we're taught that we're supposed to be sort of this mono mind, only one voice in our head, perfectly balanced. And, you know, I have so many different parts of me, and they come out as necessary. You know, the part that's here is not the same part that's out when I'm playing with my granddaughter on the floor.
Right.
You know, so we have all of that, and it's making that work well. And instead of being that mono mind and trying to be that mono mind, being that much broader expanse of who we are.
So you are blending the psychological and the spiritual. And for you, you've made it work in your own way. And that's such an important thing for most people to recognize, is that you don't have to make it work in somebody else's way. It has to work in your way. And those questions are, what is it that I don't know about this? And how will knowing this now change something in my life or somebody else's? Thank you so much for bringing that beautiful experience to us. Grace, I saw a lot of head nodding and agreement. How would you like to join this part of the conversation? Sacred conversations, spiritual and soulful companions.
I so get that part, the parts stuff, Heidi. That's what I was nodding at. Yes, I'm having these conversations all the time, and I've had to learn how to unify, bring all the parts together so that we're moving together as a unified front, being harmonious in that harmonious state. And for me, I guess because I've come from a background of a lot of, my life was I was fraught with anxiety all my life. So I've come from that kind of background. And so there's always been a lot of fear and angst going on inside my physical body. So I've learnt to be in conversation constantly between my parts, those parts of me that want to be terrified and frightened of life and that sort of thing, between me and spirit. There's this constant, I think you would use the word, Sue, blending spirit with the parts. There's this it's almost like I've set it up as a family. As a family household, basically. So my family is the Hart household. We've got a number of girls living in the family in that house, and it's we all work together and coach each other and teach each other, and but our household is filled with spirit. So we're constantly guided. We get our strength from spirit, and learn our truth about ourselves from spirit, and evolve. Are evolving in the guidance of spirit. So that's constantly going on all the time in my my own individual life here. Yes. Yeah. Probably
I think that is also so valuable for people to recognize. I love the way you said that it's a family. Of your parts that come into this conversation. And I don't think I've ever heard it put quite that way, but it's so true. Exactly how you described it. So it's that family of soul and spiritual parts that create those sacred inner conversations. Thank you so much. Jade, how would you like to join us now on that concept of sacred inner conversations?
Family of parts, Grace, that really stood out to me, and it got me thinking about the several parts to us that are the us who we are right now in this moment, which obviously ever changing, but also the parts of our consciousness from the past. So our inner child that's always ever present, and also our the teen version of us that's always ever present, that pop up. And I think we do forget that we are still those people, and they need to be checked in with all the time. They need to be nurtured. They will act out. They'll come out of you as your adult version self. You might experience anger, sadness. You don't know where they come from, but I guarantee you, if you check in, you journal, you ask yourself directly to your inner child or your inner teen, what's wrong? Why am I like this? Why do I feel this way? They will come forward and answer. So I think cultivating the soulful conversations with self is definitely about checking in with those parts of you too, not just who you are in this moment, but your subconscious.
And you have just aligned the psychological aspect of the sacred inner conversation. You've made the sacred inner conversation an important part of bringing yourself to wholeness eventually, but you've also done it from the psychological perspective. So again, we're coming back to those psycho-spiritual tools and how we bring them together, how we blend them. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jade. Joanne, I see you nodding. I know you've got something to add to this.
I'm totally 100% on board with all of what you've said. It is just such a, I guess we're all aligned in that sense of the way we work with spirit and we work with the mind, and the connection with self and those parts of us, and having those conversations to them, embracing them and finding out what they need is so, so important and imperative for healing. I'm still at the age of, what am I, 61 now, having those conversations, or finding the wounds that I thought I'd healed, 30 years ago. They're still around. So they're always going to be a part of us. I feel like it's like we embrace them. We work with them. We love them. We find out what they want. We embrace them in a way that we can use them as our power instead of our pain. And recently I found one that is my inner leader, which I didn't realize was there. Well, I obviously I did, because I've done a lot of things, but I was hiding from that part. So there's parts of us that we still are, we'll always find, and getting to that point of being with it and letting it empower us and guiding us to how we can use it in a more productive way. So and spirit is that, as Heidi was saying, it's a totally different, it feels like it's a very different flavor of connection. It comes through you. It's almost like when you get to that place of stillness and quiet, and whether you do that through nature, or you have your own practice, or whatever, or dance, or creative outlets, art. There's so many things that you can use to connect to that spirit, what really turns you on in your heart. When you connect there and ask for guidance from whoever you connect with, oh my gosh, it's like it's euphoric. It's there's a whole different energy about it, and it's like nothing else. It's honestly like something that you want to be there more often. You want to actually embrace it and be in that presence, and then learn to harness it so that you can be there more often than not, whilst you're working with that inner, conversation with your inner child, or your inner wound, or whatever it is that you are working through. And it's a life process. Like, it seriously is. We just get better at discerning what we need in those moments, don't we?
We do. And I think a lot of it has to do with unlayering. And they talk about peeling the onion. And that's exactly what this kind of work does. We can only peel it to the point where we need to do the work. And we can't go any deeper than exactly that point. Once we've acclimatized to that spot, we've gotten through it, we've gotten past it, we've had a chance to embed whatever learning and change, then we actually are shown the next layer that we still have yet to work on. We think that we've actually failed. We didn't do it right. Why did I come back to the spot again and again and again? And actually, it isn't that you're coming back to the same spot. You're coming back to the same concept. You're coming back to the same issue, but you are in a different place, ready to go to the next level with it. So it's really a matter of personal growth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%. We've got the next question. The next tool was surrender to love. And I think I'd like to start with Heidi on this one. Surrender to love as a tool. Love of self, love of others, love of life, love of what? There's so many different aspects of surrendering to love. Could you give us your top surrender?
I think that for many years, the top surrender was surrendering to loving my own self.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to really sit in my heart, stop judging, those kinds of things, and literally unconditionally love and accept myself. And once I got to that point, then I would attract, I actually finally attracted a wonderful partner that is that same way and has that spirit of generosity. My community grew, the people around me, even my clients that come in, they all come from that place of that wanting and desiring to be in that space of unconditional love. And like you said, you really need to learn to surrender to it rather than try. Because every time you try to love,
Love that.
then if it doesn't look like you want it
Yes.
to look, you failed. At least that's how our mind will register it. You haven't failed, but it's, yeah.
It's the psychology.
Yeah.
It's the psychology. Okay. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Grace, could you jump in here? Surrender to love. What was your top surrender? The thing that was hardest for you to do, but that you eventually mastered?
I actually think surrendering to love is and has been, it still is the hardest thing that I've done because it's a whole trust thing. And I think I had to really understand what love was, what love is, this unconditional love, and really understand the concept of that to the point where I can now really trust it. I can relax into it. I can trust that it's actually got my back. That I think that's been my hardest thing to do, just learning to trust and surrender into that. But yeah, I had to develop an idea of what is this unconditional love, because I was so programmed to be, it came with conditions, it came with, expectations.
Yeah.
And having to meet those. And so having to unpack all of that part of it and understand that there was this beautiful thing of love that isn't that all the things that I had learned it was. That was that. I think that's been the hardest journey for her, the hardest thing for me to.
Okay, so for Heidi was love of self. Yours is surrendering to unconditional love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jade, you've had a completely different experience in life because you've gone through these traumas so early and worked on them at such a young age. What would you say has been your greatest and most complicated surrender to love?
Yeah, gosh, that's interesting. I think what comes to mind for me first is just allowing myself to be loved, and also on that note, allowing myself to chase or receive. I think receive is the word, what I deserve. And I think that in itself is self-love, allowing myself to have those relationships that I want, allowing myself to trust in those relationships, but also, I'll share a personal experience here. I come from a small town in a small island of Australia, Tasmania. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. For young people there, but there's not a lot of opportunity. There are the cookie cutter job roles, careers of being a nurse, an accountant, a lawyer, or working in real estate. But at that time when I was young, I wanted to study fashion. And in order to do that, I had to leave my family. I had to leave my comfort zone very young. Everything that I knew, everything that, my extended family for generations knew, to pursue that alone at the time. And I had to trust in myself. I had to trust in my abilities. I had to trust that everything would work out. And I think just being in that space and in that mindset, love is a byproduct.
Interesting. I've never heard of love as being a byproduct, but I think that you're actually very, very true. It is very true. The rest of your life took precedence, and that love of whatever had to become secondary.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You just gave people a whole huge permission to allow that part of their life to take precedence. Thank you very much. Joanne.
Yeah,
surrender to love.
That was very impactful, beautiful.
Very.
So for me, surrendering to love is about accepting all parts of myself, accepting my past in particular, and my experiences as they were, and having having them as I guess the catalyst for me to find that love. Like it put me in a situation where I had to search for myself first, and accept all of those bits of my past and all of those bits that we talked about, all those parts of us that can inhibit us from, going in the direction that we want, and learning to love those first. And like I think Heidi said, and through that, 2 divorces, 4 children, and 20 years on my own, finding, somebody that was like-minded to spend that. I wouldn't have been able to do that until I learned to connect with those parts of me, and accepting that was just, I needed to own those and love those parts, and accepting that put me in a place where I could actually love myself enough to find somebody that loved me. And that love is surrendering to that is quite a powerful it's difficult, but it is you need to surrender to parts of you first, to surrender to the love of an acceptance of who you are, who you were, and that's not who you are. That's
true.
What we became along the way as a result of the experiences that we experienced, and using those experiences to help others, right? And that's where that heart comes in, because you can transfer that energy out and help others. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents.
That's a big 2 cents. Accepting, learning to love all the parts of you and letting them come forward and learning about them so that you can then help other people. Jade, your share was absolutely brilliant. Grace, yours was so necessary. And Heidi, what you've done is you've created an entire picture of what it is that we need to surrender to love in order to create the wholeness that gives us a psychological stability. And for some people, it will be one piece of it. For some people, it will be 2 or 3 pieces of it. But at different times in our lives, every single share that you have just shared actually comes into play. So I can't thank you enough for these answers. We have about 10 minutes left on our hour. We've only covered 2 of our 5 essential tools, but we have touched on the other 3. So the third tool is the gift of being with yourself in curiosity for whatever is going on in your life. And that is a sacred call to self-discovery. So I think that Jade actually spoke to that, or she opened up that piece of it. And I think Joanne opened the crack on that one even wider. So I think I'd like to go with Jade, the gift of being with yourself in curiosity, no matter what is going on in your life. Sacred call to self-discovery.
This
What
makes
are
me
your
think
thoughts?
of intuitive hits and the downloads you receive on your journey that you can either ignore or follow. I think they come from spirit, absolutely. But these intuitive hits, I believe, align you, whether you take them or not, to your purpose and why you're here.
Brilliant.
So those little, and those little things that you get, those little ideas you get of, for example, I found a love for music and DJing whilst in lockdown, but I would never, ever think, having the background I do in fashion, that's something that I would be interested in. And it's something that I'm following and being curious about. And you never know, all these little ideas or these little interests and hobbies that you have and where they'll lead you to down the path.
So that's
be curious that you.
That's the curiosity. So that
that's
is the
curiosity.
Gift. Yeah, it's a gift you give yourself.
Also, just also being open to the idea that you don't have to be just one version of you, just one personality. So you can be a mum, you can be a teacher, you can also be interested in crafts, or you could also be a part of like a gardening group on the weekends. You don't have to be just that one one person, that one archetype.
Perfect. Thank you. That was a great segue. Now we're going to take this over to Joanne. The gift of being yourself in curiosity for whatever's going on.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something you said there, Jay, because it's so relevant. Because along my journey, there was this part of me that always felt that, you know, to be spiritual, you had to be different. You had to change. You had to show up perfect, right? And it's totally the opposite. So to be authentic and show up no matter what, you know, you're going through is so important, and not be labeled as, you know, the spiritual person that's having a breakdown or whatever, is so, but okay, going on the line of curiosity and having those conversations about being with yourself. So curiosity about being with yourself is about discovering more of who you are. You know, those parts of you that does love the music and the DJ, or finding those joy things that bring you joy, so that you can explore, you know, what is you, and what can become you as a result of exploring those things and having those multifaceted ways of, you know, I'm a bit like you. I have so many things going on, and I love variety, and I love to experience new things and fit it in if I can, but it's about exploring, being curiosity about what brings you joy, what lights you up, and using those as tools to get in touch with pleasure. And pleasure is a whole different thing, right? Really living in that pleasure place, and sacred femininity, and really being in that place to explore what is possible for you as an empowered woman. So yeah,
This is getting very meaty.
I know.
Very juicy.
I'm trying to pull it back, but you know, but we could go.
No,
we could go a lot further there as well. But yeah.
Well, I love that Jade opened it up. You've taken it further. Grace, what do you have to say about the gift of being with yourself in curiosity?
Okay, yeah, I guess for me, when I saw the word curiosity, I just immediately thought about being in that inquisitive state. It puts space between you and what's going on outside you, so you've got space to look at it with clearer eyes, I suppose, and it helps you to look at it with more from a fun perspective rather than being so serious.
Yes.
But also, yeah, but also just the sacred call to self-discovery. That one speaks to me about, you know, we've got to, when we don't know about ourselves, our light can get hidden. It stays hidden. So we, you know, that discovery allows that light to come out and be in the world, and we need that. The world needs us to be shining our light. So any of that curious, inquisitive, fun stuff allows that to be more in the world, that light to be more in the world.
Well, it certainly does brighten up the world when we are in those places.
Oh, so needed.
So needed.
Yeah.
Heidi, please add your voice to this part of the conversation. The gift of being with yourself in curiosity.
I have loved this conversation, everything everybody has to say. I just have to agree with fully. The piece that I would add to that, because curiosity really is what saved me through my whole life. And it's that willingness to explore and go to just about any place. The thing that curiosity does for me is it opens up an innocence, and it opens up that unconditionalness. Because in true curiosity, we're open to what's happening for me, without really defining it, making it something, which then allows us to be completely open and unconditional and learn. So I think, you know, especially with our own inner being, that curiosity to discovering ourselves, by that curiosity nature at all, it's Oh, yes, you're showing up to talk to me now. Oh, yes, you're being part of me. Look what Spirit's bringing in. What more
So
can I know about that?
So it's
So
really allowing that box just to open up and see whatever flows out of it.
Yeah,
And keep the flow going.
yeah.
I had no idea where this conversation was going to go, but it's going in absolutely amazing directions. We are at 1 hour. We have 2 questions left. We've already really talked about number 5, which is conscious care of your spirit and soul, because that's exactly what we've been talking about all the way through. But the last question, I would love if you can give the most succinct answer possible. That'd be perfect. Giving permission to align your heart with what is unique for you. Giving permission to align your heart with something. What is that something? Grace, could you speak to that?
I think for me, it's aligning with my truth, just, staying authentic and aligning with that. That's really super important for me.
So aligning to your truth.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you. Joanne, what would you like to, giving permission to align your heart with what?
I would have to actually add, I would say truth as well, my authentic self. Yeah, and to spirit. Yeah.
Okay, your authentic self, which is you're the deepest you, and spirit, which is the spiritual side that is outside of you.
Yeah.
And yet inside of you at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Jade, giving permission to align your hearts with what?
Your purpose, because for some, I think it's greater than them and quite scary.
Aligning with purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. Heidi.
I have to say yes to everything everybody said.
Me too.
And I would also put in that aligning my heart with others, with other people, with the world, just instead of hiding my heart or blocking my heart, it's that staying in that open state and aligning and being able to meet people where they are. That to me is heart, being able to meet you where you are, not trying to meet you as I want you to be.
Wow. I had no idea, like I said, where this conversation was going to go. I thought it might go to the really woo-woo spiritual. Then I thought it might go to the left brainers, where we need checklists that ground our choices and our realities. Or we might go to the right brainers who must be in that creative, imaginative space. And yet what we really brought ourselves to was the yin yang of an entirely logical, psychological, proceeding side of our minds, and the spiritual side that tells us that there is so much more to ourselves, to the world, to the universe, and that aligns us with everybody else in the world. So I would like to thank each and one of you, Jade, MacArthur, Heidi, Henyon, Grace Hart, and Joanne Irwin, for joining me tonight in this conversation. And our topic was the 5 psycho-spiritual tools every woman needs. And I think we really went there. So I can't thank you enough for bringing your whole selves and trusting me to put you in a safe place to talk about all of this. I'd also like to thank Sophia for making this all possible for us and bring her on with a message that she has for all of us. Also, ladies, if you would like to put any special offers or your contact information into the comments, into the chat box, they will be shared with our viewers afterwards.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. And can we ask, well, because Sue, you're there, of course, you're the host of our Life Force Activators Tribe. Would you like to share with the audience before we go around with everyone on your gifts that you would like to give away?
I always offer a discovery conversation with anybody that wants to talk about spirit, spirituality, soul, about life coaching aspects of bringing yourself into wholeness with all of those aspects of yourselves. I'm an empath trainer, and my specialty is teaching people, highly sensitive people, empaths, how to shield and how to ground in what can be a very complicated world. So I help people to manage the overwhelm of living in their high level of sensitivity. So it's basically a complimentary conversation that lasts anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes. They get an MP3, a highlights summary, and a conversation with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, we will put all those links in all the comments that are all below for everyone who is watching. And we have had a few people watching, so thank you for everyone. And of course, if you've got any questions, please still put them in the comments, and we will get them to all our beautiful panelists. And Jade, what about your beautiful self? Would you like to share any program or any giveaway that you'd like to share with our audience?
So I offer tarot readings, digital tarot readings to all my clients. I also have coaching programs that are open to anyone. I do specify in life purpose, but I do have the tools to run through many areas of people's lives. But the proudest thing to me is the platform that I've built, Astro Girl, where I provide a lot of free information on all different tools that people can incorporate into their lives. So you can find me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram at astrogirl_au.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Jo, what about yourself? What would you like to share with our audience today?
Absolutely. I'd like to offer anyone who would like to have a conversation about any of the aspects we've spoken about, but also, if you're suffering from overwhelm or anxiety, pretty much got many, many free resources for you, but open to having a conversation, a free conversation for me to find out more about what's been moving forward, so you can have some strategies to go put into place immediately. I do NLP and hypnosis as well, but have that conversation. I can recommend what would be the best avenue for you to start your journey or continue your journey of wherever you're at.
Thank you for that. And Heidi, what do you have for our wonderful listeners today?
First, I want to say thank you again to everybody. This has just been so wonderful, and I really appreciate all the work that Sophia especially does, and Angel, and making this happen. I have written 3 books, 2 on healing from trauma and abuse, and 1 on how to sense energy for people who are just starting to understand energy and things. So my website, which is simplymyname.com, I am offering free downloads of my books to whoever's on this call. And in addition to that, a 30 to 60 minute, stress-free conversation about how we can work together and what I can do for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And for everyone who is watching again, do click on all the links to connect with all these wonderful panelists. And last but not least, Grace, who's the host of Up Your Vibe Tribe. And I apologise about the noise in the background. I've just muted myself. Grace, would you like to tell us a little bit about you and your tribe and what you have to give to all our listeners?
Okay, well, I'm a law of attraction life coach. I am the host of the Up Your Vibe Tribe, which is all about maintaining our vibration so that we can be manifesting what we're wanting in our lives and just supporting one another to do that. I have a free possibilities dream it session that I offer on my website. Really wanting to help people with any internal barriers that they're holding that hold them in a low vibration and that sabotages their manifesting results. So, during the possibilities dream it session, we just explore what's possible when their vibration is transformed and unstoppable. So yeah, I'd love to do that for anybody who'd like that.
Thank you so much, and for again thanking everyone who has joined us today, and for anyone who is watching, whether it's on live or replay. Of course, you can join our sacred community for just $1 Australian. Get to try out Sue's beautiful tribe on activating your life force, Grace's tribe about raising our vibration, and all our other tribes. We've got about 30 something special interest tribes that you can trial out for 3 weeks just for $1 Australian, and then after that it's just 15 Australian dollars per month. So do click on the links that are in the comments and come and join us. Next week for our panel discussions, we've got 2 amazing panel discussions coming up. The first one is in 4 days, is self-esteem and me, and then a couple of days after that is the power of human design. So again, all the links are in the comments. Come and join us. And if you do join us for the membership, you can join actually in the audience for those panel discussions at no cost. So come and join us on Zoom. So thank you all you beautiful souls for joining us. Thank Angel. I'd like to really appreciate Angel, who's been here in the background joining us as well, doing all our wonderful tech stuff. And we will see you all again very, very soon. Bye.